fields?
It would, yes. They have to have their their insurance in place.
Okay. I'm fine. I have no questions.
No questions.
Anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that we accept the field usage fees as proposed by the Parks and Recreation Department.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Anyone?
Sikansky.
Aye.
Keep.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Ellen.
very much.
Thank you. I'm off then.
Yep.
Have a nice meeting.
Bye, Ally.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, next up is a discussion of overflow parking at trailheads for conservation land in town. Rebecca, come on down.
Oh, thank you, Jenny. So what we are displaying here, what Jenny is thankfully displaying, is basically just a reminder for users on conservation land. We have been encouraging people to practice social distancing while wearing appropriate personal protective equipment in specific situations where they can't avoid social distancing, just like much of the guidance elsewhere. We also tried directing people to one of our many other 16 core conservation areas, since we have a few popular areas that are facing some high traffic and is therefore causing issues in both the roadway and in the way of emergency access in the event that it's necessary as well. So I wasn't sure if the Board of Selectmen had any other thoughts. I know this was on an item and then I was asked to come in and attend as well. The only real solutions we have, aside from encouraging people to visit other properties or just encouraging them to park appropriately, is to basically close off parking areas or to barricade off the parking areas, which under the circumstances, I don't believe that that's necessary, and I think we should be encouraging people to utilize the properties, but in a responsible manner. So I'm not sure, aside from barricading it off, how to best resolve this matter other than having it policed regularly, but I don't think that's a fair ask to our officers.
Have we thought about putting up any signage about not parking on the public way?
We could put up some temporary no parking signage. I don't think you'd want to put up permanent, at least not yet. If we put up some, if we use temporary and things start to ease, then we can remove it. And then if things do pick back up in the fall, we could always put it back again. Yeah, we certainly could do that. Or we could put, if we just put cones out, I think, people can move cones. So I think it would be more like temporary signage if that's what the board wanted to do.
What areas are we talking about, Rebecca? Are they where they're parking on the road?
Jonathan, I'll ask Rebecca to expand off this, but really we're looking at Rattlesnake, Main Street, when people are going to the kiln. We're looking at the intersection of Norse and Green Road. We're looking at Bower Springs. Those are three of the high traffic areas that we're seeing right now, and others, but those are the three that come to mind.
I would agree with you. And for Bowers, we have put up additional no parking signs along the entrance and exit of the property, but within the conservation property. Additionally, we put up an additional sign right as you enter the property. There's a secondary gate to drive down into the ponds for emergency access and maintenance purposes. We did put up a no parking sign there as well. It seems to help. I don't think it has resolved the issue by any means, specifically as we get into these wonderful, beautiful days where people want to be out on the property, but I think signage is a good first step.
Yep.
This is on the agenda as a follow-up to a phone call I got from one of my neighbors who was concerned about the entrance to the Vaughn Hills, the Hanson property, which is at the intersection of Norse and Green Roads. And the issue is that there is a big drop in the road that until you get to the crest, you don't know that there's a car parked on the right side of the road. And if you're going in the opposite direction, it's impossible to pull out of Norse Road if a car is blocking your view of what's coming down Green, again, because there's this big dip in the road where the car literally disappears from view for as much as a second as it's coming toward you. I think the larger issue may be that we just identify how many parking spaces there are at Bower Springs or at the Hanson property or at the Kiln, and ask people to respect that number. But in the case of the Hanson property and the dip in the road, it's always been an issue. It's always been a problem in terms of having the view blocked one way or the other. But it's happening with far greater frequency now than it ever has before. So I think in that area, we do need to put some kind of, I guess the question would be, how much longer would it go? Would it only go to May 18th, or would it go longer? But I think we need to come up with some remediation so that we don't cause traffic accidents.
So regarding the number of parking spaces per each parking area, that is something I had already been working on before this. And one of our wonderful volunteers, we do have material to mark out Bower Springs parking area and have it delineated a little bit more. DPW has volunteered to assist us with that, but again, time allowing, and right now there are quite a few projects they're working on, understandably so. But at Bowers, we've been seeing over the amount of cars that should be parked there because we feel that it's not delineated properly. So once that's done, I think that's one step in the right direction. As far as the Hanson parking area, 2-3 cars if they're parked correctly, but realistically only 2 cars are fitting there. There are other entrances to the property. I'm not sure if it would be helpful if you maybe had an idea. It's something I can look into as well, but how to best communicate that or enforce that, because I think that's the issue. Is we've been communicating things on the property, suggesting to people use other properties if the parking lot's full. If you notice there's a large number of cars, go somewhere else. And it still hasn't seemed to be successful in deterring people from filling a parking area.
Well, is it the parking area or people parking on the road?
Well, both. So we've been
How-
deterring, sorry.
Yeah, how about we start with, let's try to get people educated for at least not parking on the road.
Yeah.
And whether there's some signage we can do eventually, demarcating the parking in the areas that are parking. But how about get out that big sign we have where we put it by the Houghton building, and we periodically put different messages on it. And how about we put the message about, no parking in the streets by recreational or conservation land? Let's at least do that.
That would be a start.
Okay,
Yeah, let's do that.
sounds good.
Yeah, we do you want to talk about distancing from that? I mean, within, I don't know how we would mark it, whether it's not 100 yards, 150 feet, something like that. I mean, we would have to have a delimiter, from the trailhead to, and then we'd maybe have one sign back that delineates the end of the no parking area, something like that. I think you need a delineation.
Well, the problem with the delineation is it's not going to apply at the Hanson property because the dip in the road is just 50 feet away.
True. But if
How about no parking in the streets, period? Regardless of how far away it is, no parking in the streets.
in which,
I mean, the only we allow parking, I believe, right now is Main Street.
I'd have to check the bylaw. I don't have the bylaws with me, but yeah, I mean, we could look at, yeah, I mean, we could do that. And I think if it works, you may want to codify that at some point, but I think there's wording in the bylaws already. I don't know how heavily it's enforced. I remember several years back, there was a question about winter parking and people weren't supposed to be parking on any of the streets or almost any of the streets in wintertime. It was already in the bylaws. So
Yeah. I'm not sure that there's enough parking spaces. The only place that I can think of that has a large amount of parking spaces is Bower Springs. Every place else, you're sort of expected to park along the edge of the road. My
Right.
issue with the Hanson property is just that there's one particular spot that's invisible to oncoming cars until you're on top of it.
So in a situation like that, and I know Bob and I discussed this a little bit, if there's an opportunity to cut back some brush, like I've been talking about, and maybe try to make the shoulder a little bigger to invite, more off-street parking, that may not inhibit the line of sight so much. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
So the only issue on the Hanson property, unless you're talking about across the street, is we have a stone wall pretty close to the roadside. So I'd have to measure it out to see. But it's possible if the right of way extends to the stone wall, I could see potentially removing some of the slope to allow for more parking. But yet again, that's a little bit more than brush cutting.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity across the street from there to mostly what's there is 50 years of winter sand that's accumulated.
Yep.
So I think if that can be scraped away to the stone wall opposite the Hanson property, I think that there is a telephone pole there also, but you could create 3 or possibly 4 parking spaces if you clean that out.
Okay. All right, so that's good for a specific site. So I don't know if I derailed this or not. So what is it that the board would like us to do as a first step? Townwide, I mean, not specific to that spot.
I don't think we want to outlaw street parking for the whole town. And it is a good thing that people are getting out. They need to get out. They need to go on walks. So we don't want to be like clamping down just when people really need to get out. So I get it with Bower Springs because there's a house at the end, and in terms of fire, it's dangerous. Other place, I mean, so it's just different for each site. I don't know if we can come up with a blanket.
I would propose, if the board feels it's appropriate, that we rework what you see here, the COVID reminders on conservation land use for trail users. And instead of this whole segment, make a shorter segment talking about the 16 core areas, but at the top, a reminder for no street parking, something along the lines of for safety precautions or emergency access, to just instill that we're really not trying to discourage people from utilizing the property, but to really find either another property to explore or park appropriately so that emergency vehicles can get through in residence as well.
I agree with Rebecca. If we could do that, if we could try to do some more education and try to redirect some people. Because, to Jonathan's point, we do have a lot of great trails, and this is when people need them the most right now. And we have invested a lot of money in it. So if we can help as best we can, help people to use them, but use them without creating any public safety issues, that might be the first step.
Would
Yeah,
it
I
be
mean, they need to-
helpful?
sense. They need to use common sense when they park.
Would it be helpful to tell the public how many parking spaces there are at each of the conservation areas?
I can certainly finalize what I've been chipping away at and add that to each of the trail property or the information associated with each conservation area. It will take a little bit of time, but I think it's doable, and I think that would be a good add, even long term, let alone for this current circumstance we find ourselves in.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Plus we'll do the sign in front of the Houghton building
We will.
Yeah.
or
Okay.
wherever it's located these days.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks to you too. All right, next up, I have a discussion about the town meeting and election logistics. Pam Powell and Doug Story.
I'm here.
I'm here too.
Well, great. I guess we have a few things up on the agenda. There's 4 points: social distancing considerations, quorum options, warrant mailing options, and hours of town election. So, Pam, do you want to lead the discussion?
Sure. I will start with the election. I'm proposing that based on the Acts of 20, whatever it is, Section 45 Acts of 2020, that we are able to, the towns are able to reduce the polling hours for our town elections this spring. It's a minimum of 4 hours. They can open no later than noontime. So I'm proposing we move it, right now we're from 12 noon to 8 p.m. And I'm proposing we go from 12 noon to 4 p.m. Reason being, we're making a very concerted effort to get the word out that people are welcome to vote absentee, early voting, vote by mail, whatever you want to call it. We've had quite a few applications already come in. And I've put together a guide for how we're going to work at the polls, how we're going to let people in, how many people to a booth, all of that. And I think the 4 hours is going to be plenty. We have no contested races this year. We do have the ballot question, but I really don't believe we're going to have a high traffic at the polls. So I think we will service the town just fine with the 4 hours.
So what's the process for voting by mail?
Voting by mail, we just need, we've got an application on the website, an absentee ballot application. I've got it posted in the newspaper, the Facebook page. Batco's running a PSA for us. You can call town hall and have us mail you one. We can email the application. You can find the application on the website and then just email it to us, mail it to us, drop it off in the drop box. So there's a lot of avenues. We're happy to drop off ballots in people's mailboxes. We're happy to drop off ballots or applications in people's mailboxes. So we're.
So is there a way to not have the application and just to download a ballot and fill it out?
No, that's not, we're not able to do that. By law.
Okay.
Pam, have you thought about, okay, do the 4 hours, but not 12 to 4, but something shift it later in the day?
Well,
So-
we
so-
have to open by noon. That's part of the law.
right.
So if we go to 4 hours, our only option is 12 to 4. I had thought about like 2 to 6 or something like that, but then I reread the governor's what do you want to call it? Whatever he put together, the first thing that came out about elections and whatnot. And it specifically said you had to be open by 12 noon. And I know what people are thinking, that people are, maybe working or whatnot, but that's a perfect opportunity to get an absentee ballot. As I say, we've gotten 60 applications already. And we usually have, like, with no contested races, we have anywhere from 100 to 150 voters all told. So in looking at all those numbers, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's another thing we can do on, if we, the electronic sign in front of
Yes.
Town Hall.
Yes.
Have rotating messages, it goes through and circulates a series of messages during
Yep.
the course of the day.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We can find out if we can do that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. But so, yeah, if it's got to start at 12 and we want to limit it, that our only option is 12 to 4. We don't really have a.
Yes.
Dan, can I interrupt for a second?
I think I know what you're going to say. Go right ahead.
I got a text that Don has lost his connection.
Oh, okay.
So let me just see if we can get him back in.
Okay.
What I thought you were going to say, Jenny, is what we are also going to put that information in the warrant that goes to every household. So we're going to have
Quite
the
right.
time. We're going to have the time on the front, like we always do. And then we also have on the back page, Jenny and Don have allowed me to put a little mailbox with a signs, vote by mail, and instructions on how to get an application. So I hope we're covered. We're trying to get it to everybody.
Could you put the application in the warrant?
That is an idea. Hadn't thought of that. I'll talk to Jenny and I can figure that out. That's a very good idea.
That'd be great. Eliminate a step.
Yeah, that's a very good idea.
Do we want to talk about the town meeting?
I think we're just waiting for Don to come back.
Yep.
Okay.
Seeing if he could call in.
I wonder what happened.
Maybe he lost connection at his house. He was doing the meeting
That's-
from home.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yep. What I've been doing is I've been actually calling in and not relying on the computer.
Yeah.
So when the last meeting, I kept getting dropped out of the Zoom meeting, but the phone still kept going, so at least I could hear. So
That's why I do it from town hall. I'm so worried about losing my home connection in the middle of a meeting.
While we have this pause, I've been getting a lot of crosstalk on my Zoom session tonight. There's a lot of background talking or something like that. Is anybody else getting that, or is that just me?
I am trying to keep people muted that aren't part of the direct conversation. So right now, the only people that are, there are a couple of people that I could mute.
yeah, I'm getting a little of that, Bob. Not much from on
Okay.
the phone. A
Little.
little snippet.
Is Don back in? I heard a doorbell, but it might not have been.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm
yes, he
here.
is back in.
Talk
Welcome
fast
back.
before you lose me again.
Back. Back.
It's a great
When did
reason
you-
to have a short meeting.
All right, so we're done with the 12 to 4. So, Doug, what was your request for the next one?
Did we vote on that?
Oh, no,
Do we need a
Oh.
vote?
can't hurt.
All right, well, I'll take a motion that we post the hours of the town election from 12 to 4 on the 29th of June.
So moved.
Moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call,
Roll call.
Sikansky,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Wysocki. Oops, sorry, Wysocki.
Aye.
Okay, I wanted to talk about the town meeting process and location. Assuming we move forward with the June 22nd town meeting that is in the warrant, scheduled to be held at the auditorium at the high school. I went and did some investigation of that site in terms of how many people we could fit when we take into account a 6-foot social distancing. And, you know, our ability to handle, you know, a facility that holds over 600 people will now be down to about 100 people at a 6-foot distance. And I actually took measurements from seats and from rows, and I took a chart of all the seating and determined, and also tried to lay it out so that one of the things that we think is acceptable is that family members who live together can sit next to each other, but otherwise everyone has to maintain social distancing. So assuming in many cases 2 persons together, but usually no more than 1 family group per row, and in some cases it has to be every other row. So I did that. I sent that to Pam and Don and Jenny and showed them what I came up with. But basically, we can only fit about 90 citizens, as well as the members of the Board of Selectmen and the advisory and moderator and town clerk in their normal locations, also spread apart. So the concern is that if we have more than that, then we wouldn't be able to fit in the room. We looked at, I talked to the high school facilities director about using the gym, and that is an option. We can use it as an overflow space. If we do that, if we hold the meeting in the auditorium and use the gym as an overflow, then we have to appoint a special moderator to handle that room, and then also have audio and sound from that room as well, which is something that we're looking into with Bolton Access TV. Did consider moving the entire meeting to the gym because I think we could fit more people with a more easily social distancing with chairs distributed across the room. But I think Pam and Don and I all agree that we'd prefer to hold it in the auditorium if we can make that work with the gym as an overflow. You know, I think it's logical to assume that we'll have a relatively low turnout. We've been asking around, and we certainly have identified, I think, 30 or 40 people who intend to come. How many more? Don't know. But we have to be prepared for as many people as want to come. So I wanted you to be aware of that, that we have this plan in place, and that the other issues, there are a couple issues. One is that, you know, Dawn and I had talked about the fact that you, as the Board of Selectmen, have the right to reduce the quorum for this meeting. Because it may be difficult to achieve 75 if a lot of people aren't coming. There's an issue, there's a question, and I don't know if Don has the answer to that, as to whether or not that would limit the articles that we can consider. Don, did you find anything out about that?
I did. Specifically, Doug's talking about Senate Bill 2680, which passed in the Senate earlier this week and has made its way to the House. And the language, the specific language to which he's referencing, which caused us both a great deal of concern, was the bill would allow select boards in consultation with the town moderators to lower quorum requirements for open town meetings, which is what we have, to not less than 10% of the existing quorum, which in our case would be 8. I mean, I'm not saying to go to 8, but that's as low as you could go. These lower quorum town meetings would only be able to act on warrant articles approved by the select board, limited to the town's budget, and acting on federal guidelines. So we could pass a budget, and that's pretty much it. We couldn't do the zoning articles. We couldn't do the feasibility study. The mosquito control question. We couldn't do any of those other questions. So I sent an email to Kate Hogan's office yesterday expressing my concerns about that, and how on one hand, the state is giving small towns such as ours a tool, the quorum at town meeting if it felt it was necessary, but then taking away the option essentially with the other hand by severely limiting the business that we could conduct. And to her credit, she called me this morning and we discussed it, and she said that she would be following up on the concerns, you know, which is no guarantee that it's going to change, but she is taking it seriously. I mean, it would impact Stowe, it would impact Maynard, it would impact all 4 of her towns because they all have open town meeting. So I would say stay tuned for that right now. It's not an action that you need to take tonight anyway, but I did research and I did talk to Kate, and I think if the legislation doesn't get changed and it passes as is, I think the board's going to be in the position of needing to stick with the quorum of 75. But otherwise, we're just not going to be able to conduct some essential business.
So any reduction in quorum results in these new restrictions?
Yes.
Any restriction? So if we went to 55, that this kicks in?
If we went to 74, it would kick in.
Oh my God.
You lower the quorum at all.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I think that with that in place, it really makes the case that, you know, there's no reason to reduce the quorum, because if we're only going to approve the budget, we could do the 1/12 and wait until we could meet at a time when we could hold more people. But to go back to the numbers, if we have to have 75 people and make sure that we get 75 people, the likelihood of having between 75 and 90 is, you know, circumspect. So it's likely that we'll exceed the capacity of the room if we are still in a position where we're maintaining social distancing, which I assume we will be. So that begs the question of, do we, you know, plan to use the gym as overflow, which would be option number 1, or number 2, plan to move the meeting to the gym outright, because we could probably handle 150 people in the gym, where we can only handle 90 plus, you know, about 110 with the elected officials in the auditorium. So that's what we're grappling with. We don't need an answer today, but we need to be working toward that in terms of what makes the most sense. And this is all under the assumption that we are trying to hold our regular town meeting and get through all the articles on our warrant, which I think we all would like to do if we can do it, and we can do it safely.
Will we be providing masks?
What's the appetite for if we do a reduced quorum, and, is it more important to pass the budget than deal with the rest of the articles now? I mean, if we can't get the quorum that we want, if we go with 75 and we can't get the quorum we want, we can't do anything, and we go to 1/12. Is that more dangerous than lowering the quorum, getting the budget passed, and forfeiting and foregoing the other articles right now? What's the bigger gamble?
Well, we have
mosquito
the option,
control,
of further delaying.
later. If we can't get a truck, we can deal with that later. We could always hold a special town meeting later on and bring these things back up. So, what's the more critical? Getting the budget passed or going for the whole enchilada and trying to get 75 people to come?
I think, well, first off, we have the option of putting off the whole town meeting into the next fiscal year. So I don't see any reason to just have a meeting just to do the budget. So the important issues are the articles. The other articles.
But if we don't have, we're going to automatically go to 1/12 anyway. Right?
What do you mean? Yeah, if we delay the town meeting again, yes.
Right. We kick in the 1/12.
Right.
So I think we need to understand is doing 1/12 and not knowing when we might be able to have an annual town meeting, because let's face it, folks, the way things are going right now, there's no guarantee that anything's going to change at the end of May, the end of June, the end of July. Indications is that the infection rate is continuing to go up.
Well, let me ask this hypothetical. Suppose we have the meeting at the end of June. We don't get 75. What happens?
We go with a 1/12 budget.
And we reschedule the meeting.
And we reschedule the meeting. Which, honestly, my opinion is, I would not lower the quorum, at least not with the information we have right now. I would not lower the quorum. I think we've got a very good chance of hitting the quorum at 75. If we don't, then the plan B is we operate on a 1/12 budget until we can get a quorum. Whether we decide to try for that in July, which is probably not the best option. I think if we don't have a quorum in June, we're looking at a September town meeting. So I don't think we're going to, if we can't get a 75 people in June, I don't think we get them in the summertime. So
I don't think there's going to be a lot of traveling this summer.
Well, there'll be more traveling this summer than there will be in June, I guess. So I think June is our sweet spot. I mean, we can always try, but my input would be based on the information we have right now and as Doug said, we don't need to decide it tonight, but I would keep the quorum the way it is and just advertise the daylights out of town meeting and everything we can to get people there. As there are some very high interest articles on the warrant.
All right, so there may be some opportunity for the state to get some sanity here, and allow for a reduction and potentially allow us to act on the rest of the articles. So
I'm hoping for that. That's what I was lobbying Representative Hogan for.
All right, then why don't we just table that for the moment, and we can always look at it again in the next week or two.
Can we talk about providing masks at the door, disposable ones?
Yes. Obviously, our intent, if we have a meeting that has, brings a group of people together closely, is to make it as safe as possible. We would post guidelines, at the door. We would be very stringent in requiring that. We've talked about having a health official at the door, making sure that nobody was coming in who was visibly sick. We talk about, we have determined that we can require masks. Obviously that's prudent. Obviously there may be some people who would fight against that. And in, in that case, we think we can make a determination that we have to, that we require masks. But otherwise we would have a section that was no mask, that was separate from the people with masks. We've talked about having masks available. Obviously encouraging people to bring their own masks. And I think in these days, most people would, but certainly having them available. So, and then inside we would clearly mark the chairs and make it very clear that only families who live together can sit together, and that people are only allowed in the seats that are designated, which have been already identified as being, appropriately distanced from each other. So there would be an entire protocol that we would follow.
All right, well, on the question of being able to supply masks, do we have a supply or have we ordered masks at this point?
I did place an order that should have come in this week and has not. I'm hoping it will come in. However, Chief Legendre has some better access to supplies. So if I find it's not coming in and we're into June, I'll reach out to him and make sure he can give us a supply of masks to have for town meeting and for the elections.
Aren't people going to need masks just to show up?
Well, yes, that's the point of the protocols that we would put in place that would say that you should, according to the current guidelines issued by the governor, people out in public should be wearing masks, and we would assume that the vast majority of people would show up with their own mask. But in the event that some people do not, if we have some handy and we have a requirement that to get into the town meeting you have to wear a mask, at least we've provided that, so we're not, preventing somebody from coming because they forgot their mask.
All right.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I ordered masks the other day, and they're scheduled to come the middle of July. So, there's a high demand for these items.
Yeah, and a mask, I mean, let's face it, at this point, a mask is a face covering. So, there are homemade masks, there are N95 masks, and there are, some people wear bandanas, but I would say that that's somebody who's making an effort to cover their face.
Let's are smart about it. I mean, there are lots of people I see walking around in grocery stores and stuff that aren't wearing them. So, we should make sure, and I think we should make a determination if that's a requirement, and if we as a group should decide if someone refuses to wear a mask that they're not allowed into the meeting, or they'll be allowed in the section.
I agree with you, Stan. I've already been investigating. There's been some debate about whether or not we can require it, but I think with the latest directive by the governor, we can. And I think that would be a rule that we would have posted at the door. You're not allowed in without a mask.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Well, along those lines, wouldn't we just have that rule in all of our public buildings starting today?
We should.
Yes.
Okay.
And the high school is a slightly different animal. And you whether you have it posted or not, remember, somebody at a dollar store, the security guard said you can't get in with a mask, and they came back and shot him. So
right.
These are interesting times.
Well, I will certainly talk with the police chief about it as well, and make sure that we're in agreement as to how we are requiring this and what their perspective is.
Okay.
Yep. We might even want to investigate setting up, I mean, the way Market Basket's doing, lining up all the carts so there's only one line.
Oh,
and
yeah.
having a checkpoint, and they don't get even close to the building until they either have one or they don't. And if they don't, we give them one. So, you know, we just don't have people streaming into the building. So we'll have to plan for that as well.
Agreed. Okay, we'll continue to work on this. I just wanted to give you that update.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Doug.
On that, we've talked about social distancing considerations, the quorum options. Hours. We haven't talked about the warrant mailing options.
No, the warrant mailing option, normally what we do, we send the warrant out to be printed, it comes back. It's a pretty labor intensive effort to get it sorted out, to go to the different, to get into the different bins required for mailing. You know, we have strip workers help us, which we don't have access to. We have various options. We were approached by the Bolton Independent to look at utilizing them. I should have mentioned there's also health restrictions. That's, you know, when I was implying that when I said we can't use the strip workers and so forth. So we don't have access to labor that we would normally have had. The Bolton Independent for several years, also the Stowe Independent, has been mailing out the warrant for Stowe, and it's worked fine. And so we've gotten pricing from Cindy Brenner, and the pricing is essentially a wash. And it avoids all the labor. They would print it, insert it into the newspaper, and it's the day, at least one day a year where they do a mailing to every resident in town. So it could go with the newspaper. Again, we would advertise it. It wouldn't cost us much more money to do, and it avoids all that labor that, again, we don't have access to right now. I spoke with the town administrator in Stowe about his level of satisfaction with that they've been using it 3-4 years now, and they've been very, very happy with it. It would, I believe it would go out in the June 3rd issue. So it's well in advance of town meetings, certainly within our notice requirements. So unless the board has any objections, that's the avenue that I'd like to pursue to get the warrant printed and mailed this year.
Sounds fine to me.
We don't need to competitively bid this?
No, we don't. It doesn't
Okay.
that price threshold.
All right, I'm
Right.
fine.
I'm fine.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so on to the next agenda item, which is the always well-anticipated and gratefully received town administrator report.
Well, I don't know that I'm as good virtually, but we'll do the best we can here. So, so leading off with the COVID-19 update, which I think has become the new Minuteman. I'd just like to.
I go on forever too.
We've already discussed the face covering aspect in the governor's order, so I'm not going to get into that again. I would like to talk about town buildings and my thoughts on access to town buildings. Right now, the governor's order extends out to May 18th. Every indication he's given is that he probably will doing some loosening of things, but nothing significant yet, because of the numbers just aren't dropping the way he had hoped they would. So I don't have any intention of reopening the town buildings for another 2 weeks beyond the 18th. So right now I'm looking at June 1st, depending on what new information we have. But if I had to make a decision right now about June 1st, or I guess I should say in the bigger picture, when we start to reopen to the public as a whole, and let's say it's June 1st, I would want to try it by invitation, not invitation, by appointment only at first, for things that can't get done online. And we're running into very few situations right now, if any. For instance, if somebody had to come in, Pam might have to deal with a marriage license request. We can put things together. Pam is very flexible with things like that. If a builder or a contractor had to, or a lawyer had to see physical plans. You know, you make an appointment to get that done. We'll have them laid out on the big table for them. They would come in, conduct their business and leave. Because right now with things still as, you know, with cases as high as they are, I can't control the number of people in the building right now. You can't have the town administrator or anybody really right now being the Walmart greeter, making sure that we don't have more than X number of people. And
Right.
as I started thinking about social distancing of 6 feet at the counters, another challenge, and we're going to have this challenge one way or another, is I was just thinking about vertically. You also have to think about horizontally, because that hallway isn't all that wide. You know, somebody standing at Jenny's counter and somebody standing at the assessor's counter, are we able to keep those people apart from one another? Or Pam's counter and Michelle's counter. So I'm not in a rush to reopen the town buildings yet, because I think we're getting business done in the town hall. We're getting business done in the DPW. I'd love to reopen the senior center. And of course, the trustees will decide how they want to approach the library. But as far as the town hall goes, I'd like to keep the town hall as is, at least until June 1st, probably June 1st.
That's fine with me. I think being more prudent is better than not.
Well,
And I think your notion of by appointment only for the foreseeable duration is fine too.
Okay, yeah, there's very little upside in doing a quick reopening, and there's a big downside.
Absolutely. Well, they're already seeing it in Georgia and Florida. They opened everything up and everything's spiking again. So I think it's prudent to take a more cautious approach to this.
All right, thank you. There's a couple other things. As I believe you know, we can apply, any town can apply for FEMA reimbursement funds for expenses incurred as a result of the coronavirus. You get 75% reimbursal. Chief Legendre has taken the lead on this. Any department that is incurring such expenses, the invoices are being submitted to him, copies of the invoices. He's making the submissions to FEMA. He's successfully done the first submission for a total that we spent was $26,227.27. And we can expect a reimbursement of $19,670.45. So, and we're closely tracking any expenses related specifically to the pandemic. They'll be submitted to FEMA, and at some point we'll see 75% reimbursement. So deep appreciation to the fire chief for spearheading that, and to all the department heads for tracking their spending so closely and getting them into the chief. Also, wanted to give you an update on the COA. Just got an update from Lisa this week, and quickly, I just wanted to let you know that phone call check-ins are still happening. We continue to regularly reach out to seniors who we consider to be most at risk, and those who live alone or don't have family or neighbors nearby. As we're doing errands, grocery shopping, prescription pickup. Lisa and Heather are continuing to shop for some of the seniors in town. And we also have many volunteers who are kind enough to sign up and help with that. So, you know, our volunteers are just fantastic. Meals on Wheels are being delivered once a week. At that time, seniors are given multiple frozen meals to be used throughout the week, and volunteers are in place and helping with that as well. The Mark van is still available for medical appointments. We did one ride last week, but many appointments have been canceled by doctors, so we haven't had heavy use of that. They're trying to communicate over as many avenues as possible, and just because the seniors are feeling so isolated and suffering from anxiety, they're trying to lend support by providing necessities and fun items in goodie bags. The first goodie bag that they did was delivered to Bolton Country Manor residents and several community seniors. The bags included 2 rolls of toilet paper, 1 box of tissues, 1 roll of paper towels, a cloth mask made by volunteers, a bar of soap, and a large print word search book, and a note encouraging seniors to reach out to the COA with questions and concerns for support. And goodie bag number 2, the springtime cheer gift bag. Those bags were delivered to the manor residents and seniors in the community who live alone and do not have support from family or friends or neighbors. We received a fairly large candy and cookie donation from Wheat, and we felt this was the best way to distribute the goodies. The bags included 1 bag of Lindt chocolates or a chocolate bunny, and a box or tin of cookies, and an upbeat note from the COA. People were really happy to receive the bags. Lisa got several phone calls from seniors saying that they couldn't be with family or friends on Easter, and the goodie bags filled with treats made their holiday feel special, and they felt celebrated. So there's all those types of efforts going on that normally you don't hear about or not everybody knows about. So there's a lot of work going in, taking place, trying to keep an eye on our seniors and try to help support them.
Great. That's great.
So next, we have the proposed visitors code of conduct, which Jenny sent out in the updated packet. I think it's self-explanatory, but as by way of background, this is something that Kristen Noel and I had been working on for a bit, and she reached out on her listserv to various communities, and what we have is a compilation of what several other communities have done. You might find it interesting that the towns that we know of that are already doing this are towns such as Ludlow, Orange, Acton, Newton, North Reading, Lanesboro, Rowe, South and Southbridge. Bourne and Gloucester have requested that once we put ours together, that we share it with them. Sterling is doing it as well. Library has a code of conduct in Lancaster. The Lancaster Library has a code of conduct for their library. And when Kristen heard back from Harvard this afternoon and said they don't have one, but they would like to see ours when it's done. Acton seemed to have the one that's the most copied, for lack of a better word. Acton seems to be very comprehensive. We've been working on this because, there are times during the course of the year and the board hears about the transfer station, but you don't hear about the town hall, basically because we manage it ourselves. But there are times when people that do get unruly, and it's not just residents, it could be contractors, it could be developers, it can be real estate agents, it can be lawyers, and the staff handles it well. But this is a tool that will allow me to better manage things, I believe, and it is for the 1 or 2% that that just for whatever reason feel that it's their right to abuse municipal employees. I can't put it any other way. And it'd be a very useful tool for us to have if I ever, God forbid, have to pursue things through court, so that we can say that we have a visible posted policy, and it lets the employees know that the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen support them. So I think it's highly important, and I really ask your consideration to vote and approve this.
I'm fine with it,
Don?
John. That's a great idea.
Yes, Jonathan.
So would swearing be under offensive behavior or lewd?
It would not be. Unfortunately, we can ask people to not use profanity, but as has been pointed out to me in profane tirades more than once, it's their First Amendment. It's their First Amendment right to swear, and it's not against.
Okay.
Technically, they're right. And they did use profanity, as they told me it's their right to use profanity. So To answer your question, no, lewd behavior is more of a sexual type nature.
Yeah.
And
Well,
this
I
has
have,
been reviewed by town council and been approved by town council.
I have seen this kind of behavior by people at the library, and I have witnessed this firsthand at the transfer station more times than I would care to. So I think it's a great thing. It's a great thing to have it in place. Hopefully, you know, we don't have to refer to it, to Don's point, going to court or something. But I think it clearly shows that we support our town employees, and that, you know, we have their backs on this.
I'm fine.
Yep.
Do you need a motion, Don?
Yes, please.
All right,
All
well,
right, to approve?
I move that we approve the proposed Visitors Code of Conduct.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Had to find my unmute button. Roll call. Sikansky,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
and Waisaki.
Aye.
Great, thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the disposal of surplus supplies or capital. This is something I've been wanting to get to for a while and finally did. There are laws, procurement laws that govern the disposal of property or supplies in excess of $10,000. Under $10,000, it's up to a town to establish a reasonable policy, which I believe I have here. And one of the
Oh, Don. Is it me or is it everybody else that we've lost?
I
He's
lost them too.
frozen.
Oh, Don. You are frozen in time, Don. Like one of the science fiction movies.
Who is that?
Who knows? I think the longer we're on Zoom meeting, the more it deteriorates. So at least I haven't
Jenny
been
there?
kicked off, which is unlike the last meeting.
Is Jenny there, Stan, or are you and I the only two humans left in existence?
I'm here.
There you go. Okay, I feel better now.
That's three.
I just
People left in the world.
I resent the invitation to Don. He's trying to get back in.
We'll have to create a new society now. There's only a few of us. And don't laugh. Don't laugh.
Just keep moving. I think that's what you
Yeah.
need to do.
Yeah. You know, years ago, I don't know if anybody watched the movie Contagion.
Right.
And it's like, oh, yeah, that'll never happen. Well,
Yes.
here we are.
Stan,
Yes, dear.
I'm going to put Don on speaker through my cell phone so that we can
Okay.
get through the rest of the meeting.
Cool.
Oh, let me unmute.
Hello,
Try now. Can you hear Don?
can you hear me all
Well
right?
done.
Yep.
Okay. So anyway, so the fire department has a compressor that is in a state of disrepair. We put it up on Unibid, which is a municipal auctions, and we had no takers. So there is a community who's interested in acquiring or taking the compressor off our hands, and they can fix it up and use it. We don't need it. It's truly surplus, but legally, I couldn't give the fire department permission to turn it over to another community without this policy in place.
Okay. Sounds good to me. I mean, I read it. It's fine.
Yeah. So I'll make a motion to approve the proposed disposal of surplus supplies or capital policy.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call,
Aye.
Sikansky,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
and Waisaki.
Aye.
Great,
Okay,
thank you very much. And then lastly, the MassWorks update. As you can see, the paving was completed yesterday.
yes,
I think I
nice.
think the project has come out looking really good.
Mm-hmm.
The one remaining thing to get done as far as physical work is we need to get the actual signals in and installed. We're still looking at anywhere from mid to late June to early July. But even if it's completed in early July, the project will still be almost a year ahead of schedule. So
Right.
the state appears to be very happy with the way we've moved this project along. And as far as the truck exclusion issue goes, there has not been a meeting yet in Clinton to discuss whether or not they would support it. I did speak with town officials this week, and they said that when the traffic committee meeting is scheduled, I'll be notified so I can attend to represent Bolton virtually or physically, depending on how it's done. But that hasn't been scheduled yet. So that's where the MassWorks project stands right now.
Okay, great. Okay,
And that's all I have, unless the board has any questions for me.
I'm good. Gentlemen, any questions from you?
Thank
No.
you, John.
Okay. All right, next up is Board of Selectmen business. Anyone have any public service announcements?
Yes. Dog licenses. There's still 4 or 5 dozen families out there who have not licensed their dogs from last year. And,
Did you say-
pardon me?
Did you say 4 or 5 dozen?
Yes. Between
That's
60 and around 60 families have not licensed their dogs.
Honest to God.
So, the licensing was due March 31st. In the past, there's been a penalty if you didn't get it registered by May 1st. Pam Powell has told me that she is going to suspend the $25 late fee until June 1st. So I would urge everyone who has not yet licensed their dog to go online. That's how you do it. You go online and get your dog license application completed and paid for. Thank you.
Okay. Pam, are you still on the line? Or did you drop off, Pam?
Pam is no longer on the line, but Don is trying
All
to
right.
speak.
I just wanted to add that, yes, but Bob's exactly right. The dog licenses can be done online. It's actually very, very straightforward. And my own public service announcement, we expect the work on the culvert on Forbush Mill Road to be done tomorrow. So people should be able to access the transfer station by end of business tomorrow from either direction. You can also subscribe for notifications and any DPW notifications or updates that go out by going to our website and subscribe, and you can get specific DPW announcements, which I think would be helpful, especially in the situation we just had this week.
Okay. All right. Okay, any other public service announcements? Hearing none. Next up is review and execution of the memorandum of agreement with 286, Massachusetts Coalition of Police, IUPA, AFL-CIO Police Union.
Yes. So as you have in your packet, we have a copy of the signed MMA. I have a copy of the signed one. I don't know if you have it. I don't think you have the signed one in your packet. But the police union and the next one have both been signed. Given the uncertain situation going forward, it seemed to make a lot of sense to try to get a 1-year contract done quickly to be able to give our essential public safety workers some security and some surety going into next year. So as was discussed, this memorandum of agreement and the next one has no language changes whatsoever. It's for a contract duration of 1 year with a 2% increase wage adjustment for FY21, which has been budgeted for. And we just don't know what the future is going to bring us for FY22 and beyond.
Right.
But this seemed to make sense all the way around, and both of these have been signed. And normally the Board of Selectmen signs them, and you can still do that if you want to use the wet signature process, but it's also legal if you want to designate me as your authorized signatory. I did add a signature line, so I can do that and save you from coming in to have to do it.
Right. And this one, as well as the DPW, we're basically talking about the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing.
Okay. All right. I'm fine with actually both of them. I'm also fine with designating Don to be our signatory. Unless you gentlemen have any concerns about that.
No, I'm fine with Don signing it, and I think it's a good idea to do this 1 year contract.
I think it's a great idea.
Yep, I'm fine.
John?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to basically, do we need to, approve, ratify? Or what's the wording, Don?
Ratify.
All right, why don't we do both of them at the same time, since we've discussed both? I'll take a motion to ratify both of them.
All right, I move that we ratify the 1 year contract with the Bolton Police Union Local 286 and with the Bolton DPW Union Local 1703.
Just to clarify, please, these are memoranda of agreement. They are not contracts. I'll be coming back with the collective bargaining language for or the integrated language for the contracts, probably at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Second.
so amend. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Roll call.
Sorry, roll call. Sikansky,
Aye.
Heap,
Aye.
and Waisaki.
Aye.
I
Okay.
just realized in my motion, I didn't make Don the signatory. So I will make a motion that the selectmen authorize Don Lowe to sign the memorandum of understanding with the DPW union and the police union.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Aye.
Roll call. Sikansky,
Aye.
Heap,
Aye.
and Waisaki.
Aye.
Can I
Okay.
interject for one moment? In your motion, Bob, did you say, what council number did you say?
It was for the DPW union, I said the local 1703.
Because on the agenda, I have AFS CME council number 93.
Yeah, but on the
Yeah.
memorandum of understanding itself, at the top, it says local 1703,
Let me open it up.
AFS CME council 93. So it's,
Yeah.
it was easier to say local.
Oh,
It
it's
was
both,
easier to
okay.
say local 1703 than the other thing.
All right, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't the
Yeah.
wrong number. I see it now.
Okay.
It's fine.
All good. Okay, next up is confirmation of receipt of plans for an accessory apartment at 55 Hudson Road.
Let
Okay,
me share
now, is that something that's gone before the planning board?
Oops. Yes. Well, it's gone to the building inspector.
Right. This is a required step in the process.
Right, and the building inspector's fine with all that stuff?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay,
So
Why-
so the next
why
step
would-
is the board needs to acknowledge receipt.
Yeah, we're not approving it, right? We're just acknowledging
Okay.
receipt.
right,
That's right.
exactly.
All right. So I will, I move that the board acknowledge receipt of the, what's it called again?
Accessory apartment.
Accessory apartment, 55 Hudson Road.
Okay. Receipt of plans for the accessory apartment at 55 Hudson Road.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call, Sikansky,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Waisaki.
Aye. Next up is to approve the bills and the payroll warrants, W20-22 and W20-22A.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Roll
And do we have any
call,
minutes? Oh, sorry.
Before you move on from the warrant, there's a second set of bills and payroll that Jenny just sent out today, notice on, that needs to be voted.
yeah, did you want to include it in one motion or did you want to do two separate motions?
What are the numbers?
W2022, or sorry, W2023 and W2023A were just received today.
So I
All
will
right,
revise my motion to include those.
So now I'll,
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
and I'll do roll call. Sikansky,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Waisaki.
Aye. Okay, and do we have any minutes?
We do. We have two sets of minutes from April 3rd and April 16th, both regular sessions, since we can't do executive session minutes in the regular session. So let me share those. This might take a minute because I've kind of lost my screen. Where'd I go? The changes were very minor. Actually, without sharing, I could probably just tell you what the changes were. There was a misspelling of the word usage. The Boy Scout barn was changed to the Scout barn. And the word was added in. So nothing was content if you felt comfortable voting.
That's fine with me. Take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, oh, Jonathan, did you fall into the ocean
bay.
there?
Yeah.
Hey, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Roll call, Sikansky,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
Waisaki.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, who is this, please?
it's Martha Remington.
Yes, yes.
I wanted to go back to the Mass Works project that you talked about a couple of items ago.
What's your question?
My question is, the two town trees that were planted at 712, I believe, and 713 Main Street that should have been fenced off, but half of their root beds were destroyed. I just wanted to let the record show that those trees, which are about 8-10 years old now, they seem to have a good bud set, but Director Lynch at DPW had told us that those would be fenced off and not damaged. I wanted to let the record show that if those trees do not survive in a couple of years, they should be replaced. They were paid for by town taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martha. So noted.
Thank you.
All right, any other business, gentlemen?
Did we complete all the minutes?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
All
Second?
right. All those in favor
23.
signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Roll call? Sikansky,
Aye.
Keep,
Aye.
and Waisaki.
Aye.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
All right, good night.
Night.
Hi, Jenny.
Good night.
Still there?